We're talking cattle markets now. So Derrell, how would you assess the beef and cattle markets so far this year?
You know, so far in January, I think we're far enough into it to kind of get a sense of how the new trends are, if you will, for the year. If you look at feeder cattle markets, the calf markets and stocker markets have actually been quite strong here in January. The bigger feeder cattle are clearly showing kind of the impact of these higher grain prices. So they're a little bit weaker. So we've got some, some difference in those markets. Fed cattle markets are just kind of stable. I think really trying to get in a position where we can sort of see some spring seasonal strength in that market.
Are there any negative factors that are impacting the cattle and beef markets?
You know, we've got several challenges going forward in cattle and beef markets. Obviously, the ongoing pandemic is still an issue with respect to the food service markets and the supply chains. That's a bit of an issue at this point in time. Probably the biggest change we've seen in cattle markets has been the dramatic run-up in grain prices in the last 2 or 3 months. So we've got the prospect of higher feed cost. And when you combine that with the ongoing drought conditions in the western half of the U.S., some producers certainly are going to experience some real challenges going forward from a feed cost standpoint.
You know, drought, you mentioned drought. Last time we spoke, you were really hitting that drought could be an issue. You know, recently in Oklahoma specifically, we've had pretty big large storm system roll through, some rain. How do you think that's going to impact at all going forward?
Well, so far, we've seen kind of a hole. Oklahoma, southern Kansas, much of the wheat area has actually gotten some moisture. I think we're in a little better shape. Parts of Texas that were dry have gotten a little bit of moisture, although they're still dry. What we've been able to do is kind of hold the drought at bay from expanding farther east at this point in time. Western states are still very dry, although some areas are getting a little bit of moisture, but it's going to be really critical by the time we get to about April to see how we're set up for the spring conditions.
Well, that's positive for Oklahoma producers going forward, but what's some other positive factors with these cattle and beef markets that you're seeing right now?
You know, obviously we continue to see good demand at this point. I mean, we have had this nice run up in boxed beef prices since the first of the year. That probably indicates that we did a reasonably good job of moving product through the holiday period, cleaned it out the pipeline. Now we're rebuilding that. And we also had in the last trade data some very positive news, strong exports and with imports moderating a little bit. So all of those factors from a demand side are quite positive at this point.
You know, with all that in mind, what is the outlook that you have for, going forward for the rest of the year?
You know, we're still cautiously optimistic that we're going to see some improvement from a price standpoint in 2021. It may turn out to be kind of a case of sort of two halves of the year. With the challenges we've got right now and with the the time it's going to take for to roll out the vaccines, get the pandemic under control. If we can stay on track with that through the first half of the year, that may be a little bit of a little bit of stress in the market here in the early part of the year. But as we move through the middle of the year and into the last part of the year, there's a decent chance that we could see things start to improve significantly. Supply should be a little bit more supportive. We're looking for a little bit tighter cattle numbers going into 2021. Demand again continues good, and the trade picture is improving. So if all of those factors continue at this point, the second half of the year could look quite a bit better.
Then we just have to worry about normal problems just like drought and lack of forage.
That's exactly right. And obviously the drought conditions in the feed markets as we get into the new growing season will be really critical.
Well, I can't wait till normal problems are the only thing we have to worry about.
Exactly.
All right, thanks, Derrell. Dr. Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.